Hi, friends. Are you thinking about starting a Catholic business, or do you run a Catholic business and you're feeling a little frustrated? You need some tips or inspiration. If so, stay right here. My name is Amy Brooks, and this is Jess Nayden, the owner of Refuge Rosaries. Jess and I are both members of Catholics Online, which is a community of Catholic business owners, content creators, influencers, speakers, ministry leaders, and we work together to help each other achieve our personal goals and our missions that are for the glory of God and for the good of his kingdom. So, Jess, like I said, is the owner of Refuge Rosaries. You can find Jess, myself, and the rest of our community at catholicinfluencers.com. But let's say hi to Jess and have her introduce herself as well as her business, Refuge Rosaries. Hi, Jess. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for having me. It's lots of fun. My name is Jess Nayden. I live in Connecticut, and I'm the owner of Refuge Rosaries, which is a small Catholic business. I mainly make rosaries using wood and gemstone beads, and I also make rosary stretch bracelets.
So that's awesome. And they're beautiful too. So can you tell us about Refuge Rosaries, like when it started, why it started, and how it became a profitable business?
Sure. So I started Refuge Rosaries it was about June of 2020 was when my shop opened. And I had been working part-time as a youth minister. I had two small children at the time, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And my husband was a PhD student, and then he started teaching at a Catholic high school. And I was home with the kids, working part-time on the weekend. And then when the pandemic started, I lost my job because youth ministry wasn't meeting. So it was kind of a time for, for the parishes to make some cuts. And that wasn't our primary income, but it was supplemental, and it was something that we relied on. And I remember thinking, like, why am I not totally freaked out that I just lost my job, two small kids in the pandemic? And I just thought, well, it's okay. I'll just sell my rosaries. And usually I'm not this calm in like the face of an emergency, but it was just very clear, like, I'll just sell my rosaries. And I said that to my husband, and he was like, okay, let's do it. Like, I support you. And neither of us knew anything about starting a business. We didn't know anything about selling anything online. We were living in a 2-bedroom apartment. We didn't have a lot of space. And I'd made like a couple of like sample rosaries for just like an idea that I had. Like I wanted to buy like a wooden gemstone bead rosary for myself because I had little kids. They kept breaking the fancy rosaries. I kept losing them. And I really liked rosaries on a cord with wood beads, but like I didn't see what I envisioned. I saw rosaries that were too big, or they were too masculine, or I didn't like the colors. So I ordered like, some beads and some pieces, and I just made a rosary. And I remember before the pandemic, I showed my friend, like, hey, I made this. And she was like, I would buy that. And I was like, really? You would buy that? You would buy this? I could sell this? And so then like months passed, where, in the middle of the pandemic, and lost my job right away. And I thought, okay, I got to start a business. And it ended up being such a grace, because instead of panicking about what was going on in the world, I was researching how to start a business. And I was praying about, well, what do I call my business? What are some other designs I could make? And thinking about this, knowing that I was going to talk to you, I was remembering like how good God was to me personally in that crazy time in 2020, by motivating me to start the business, because it kept me so focused. It kept me connected to my faith. And it gave us, my husband and I, something to collaborate on other than like being in an apartment with two little kids, unable to go anywhere. Like, what a nightmare. But we're like getting all excited about making the rosaries. And I started my Instagram account. I came up with the name Refuge Rosaries. And then when we launched in June 2020, it was like, oh, this is so fun. This is awesome. And then people started buying them. And I really felt like, okay, like this is the direction that the Lord is leading me. This is what we do now. We have a small business and we make rosaries, and it happened really fast. But it was so good, and it still is.
Did you launch your Etsy store at the same time as your Instagram, or did one come before the other?
It's a good question. This was part of my like very bare bones strategy, is that I launched the the Instagram about a month before I started selling on Etsy. And when I like look at like how did I become a small business owner? Like for my job as a youth minister, and also I worked for the diocese before I became a stay-at-home mom, part-time youth minister. I learned a lot about social media marketing. So I learned how to use Canva. I learned how to kind of have like a more professional Instagram account. So I spent a month kind of building up the account and like getting followers and interacting with people. And then because like how do you tell people that you have a business? So that's what I did. And like it wasn't huge when I first opened. I think I probably had like a few hundred followers. But then I did, countdown to the Etsy shop opening. And I remember like hitting like it's live now. And my first customer, it wasn't someone I knew. It was someone from Instagram. It was like a real person. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like someone bought something." And so Instagram has been, I would say like that has been a huge asset for me. And starting, Refuge Rosaries at that moment, where people were home, people were online, people were looking for ways to connect. And I think that's one of the reasons why it started to grow is because of social media.
Mm. How did you come up with the name Refuge?
So that's, another thing I love to talk about. Another good question is like, I'm really not good at naming things, even like my kids. Really long, long discernment, a lot of drama. But I was like, okay, I have to come up with a catchy name. And so I was like looking at Catholic quotes, Catholic books, things that we had around the house, Catholic quotes about prayer. And I found these two quotes that stuck out to me. One was Our Lady of Fatima said, "My Immaculate Heart will be your refuge." And then around the same time that I was like researching and trying to come up with names, I saw this quote by Saint Therese, that prayer is a refuge for her. And I was like, oh, refuge. And then like the word refuge just came, kind of stuck in my mind. And it appears in the Psalms so often. God is our refuge and our strength. And I was like, oh, Refuge Rosaries. I think that sounds good. And I was like, well, that's what it's going to be. It's Refuge Rosaries. And I really felt like through Refuge Rosaries, like the Blessed Mother was my refuge during the pandemic. Like I felt so confused and so scared, but then Refuge Rosaries and Our Lady and the Rosary, I felt really safe and really taken care of. And like she literally was my refuge, and she still is.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And I love the alliteration.
Right? You
I'm a
can't go
big
wrong
fan,
with
big fan of alliteration. So say someone wants to start a business or they own a rosary business or they're thinking about, using digital media to evangelize, but they also, are looking to support their family too monetarily. What advice would you give them
Well,
or
I
tips?
would say like you absolutely should just go for it. And like something that's been really huge for me and like motivating me like as I continue as a business owner is that it doesn't need to be perfect. Like you just need to start, and there are so many things that you can like figure out as you go. And like it was not the perfect circumstances for me at all, and I didn't have like all the fancy things or all the knowledge. But if I hadn't started, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to grow over 4 years. Um, and I think a really good phrase I heard it on a podcast is like, "Done is better than perfect." Like it's better to set up the Etsy shop with the imperfect photos and the like not optimized SEO or keywords or tags than to not do it and just sort of be like paralyzed by all the things you don't know. Like it's better to just go for it. And sometimes when I'll list something, I'll be like, oh, like the lighting isn't 100% perfect. Just put it up there and you can switch the pictures out later. You can edit your description later. And it's the same thing with a social media post. Like it might not be the best, but it's better than not doing it at all. And you learn how to get better by doing things and creating things. And as far as like starting a Catholic business and you're making rosaries, there's already a million rosary shops out there. Like it's fine. Like everyone has their own style when it comes to rosaries. And like I've met people and seen people who their rosaries are so different than mine, but I think they're so beautiful. But I would have never thought to create a rosary with those materials, with those colors, with those combinations. We all have something unique to bring to the table. And there's going to be someone out there, a consumer, a customer, a Catholic looking for a rosary, and we're all called to pray the rosary, who will look at mine and say like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. And then they'll find someone else's and be like, yes, this one's perfect. And sometimes people will come to me and they'll say like, oh, do you make rosaries with links or with chain or with metal beads? And I'll say, no, I don't, but I know this other person who does, or they can repair your rosary, they can fix your rosary. Like I cannot make enough rosaries for all the people who need rosaries. So if someone's watching this thinking like, oh, that sounds fun, I'd love to make rosaries, you should do it. You should definitely do it. And there's tutorials, there's websites on how to learn to make rosaries, because this isn't something that we like gatekeep. It's not a secret. Like if everybody wants to make their own rosary, like go for it. Like this is really what Our Lady wants. Like there's not one perfect rosary out there for everyone. It's really unique and it's really personal.
And
So
it's
yeah,
hard to fathom. There's so many people in the world.
right.
There's,
It's
and I just,
billions.
the phrase that's been in my head lately is God will never be outdone in generosity. So if
Yeah.
you're giving your talent to him and you're giving your heart to him and you're being generous, God will be all the more generous. So I heard you mention podcasts. Is there a certain podcast or a couple podcasts you listen to as a business owner that might be helpful to for us to listen to as well?
Yeah, I listened to The Product Boss. Like this is like a few years ago, but I still follow them. There were some really inspiring stories that she was interviewing people who started businesses and like much bigger businesses than me, but we all had very similar origins. Like everybody started in like their basement or their garage or just like with an idea at their kitchen table, and hearing like that these like big, successful, like profitable brands, like they all had a starting point. So yeah, I learned a lot from The Product Boss. I still follow their stuff for their tips on social media and email. And I think when you're a product-based business owner, you need to be looking for people giving product-based advice rather than like service-based, because it is pretty specific. And you've got materials in your house and things like that. I have a lot of materials.
And you have to.
Yeah.
So what tips on top of that? That's great. I never actually heard of that website, The Product Boss, or
Oh
that
yeah.
podcast. Um, I want to ask you two more things. What I want to ask you a little bit about Etsy, whether you recommend it, and if you have any tips there, and just general tips on how to go from this is my hobby and I like doing it to this is my business and it not only gratifies my heart to do it, but it also helps us, go on vacation or buy our food, etc. So pick which one you want to go first, and then.
I'm gonna go with my tips for starting.
Okay.
So this is like so funny to me that I'm giving like tips on how to start a business, because I still don't really feel like a business owner. Like sometimes I'll say like, oh yeah, like when I meet someone, I have a little Etsy shop, and then they'll be like, you have over 10,000 sales in your Etsy shop. Like you're a business owner. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like I'm mainly just like a homeschooling mom, but like, yeah, I am. I am a business owner. So like first you need to have like a product that you create that you believe in, that you're really passionate about. And like I did receive encouragement from like my friends and my family early on, like these rosaries are nice, I would buy them. And I'm like, like they're nice. And they were pretty unique at the like now there's more similar ones, but at the time they were like pretty unique. And I felt like, okay, like there are already a lot of beautiful rosaries, but like mine are unique. And I think if I like them, I feel passionate about them, and maybe other people will be too. So then I'm not like trying to like trick someone into thinking they need my product. Like you want someone to say like, yeah, I like that. And I want that. So like having a good product that you believe in, that's a little bit unique, even if it's, something that already exists, but it's your own spin on it. That is really important. And then like photography that reflects how beautiful your product is. And like I'm doing my pictures with my iPhone, but iPhones are amazing. And like doing like a little bit of editing in Lightroom with some presets, like you can get beautiful pictures. And I think like from the beginning, even, my pictures have improved, but they were pretty good. They were good enough. And that's really huge for being like an online product-based business, is good products and photography that represents what your products are really like. So that would be my first tip. And then my second tip is you need to find customers. People need to know about you. So there's this whole world of marketing that I'm still just like kind of like how do I get more customers? But being on social media, being active on social media, that was really huge for me. And now it's even more saturated, so it's even more work, but be a presence on social media, be active, engage with other accounts, update frequently, try to follow what the trends are. Um, and then I guess that ties into my third thing, is that you need to keep trying new things. And for a while I was like, oh, I don't want to do videos. I don't want to make reels. I don't know how to do that. I only know how to do pictures, and I'm just going to keep doing my pictures. And I realized like I need to push myself, or I'm going to get left behind, or I'm not going to get my products in front of the people who would really buy them if they could see them. So I started making reels, and my first reels, they were so bad. They were so bad, but like at the time, Instagram really wanted you to be making reels. So I was getting tons of views and tons of followers from these like terrible reels. And I was so scared. I was so scared to like mess it up, or I don't know what to do. And I think we can all relate to, if the first time you do something, even if it's not that hard, it seems very scary. It seems very intimidating. But I just started doing it, and I, grew a lot once I started as an account, once I started doing the reels. And there's still some things that are on my list of like, these are things I need to try. Like I need to try being on camera. Very hesitant to being on camera. And a lot of the time it's because I'm a stay-at-home homeschooling mom with my kids around me, surrounded by markers and monster trucks and whatever. It doesn't feel very aesthetic, but like I need to take my own advice and push myself a little bit. And it doesn't need to be like a huge thing, but just a little bit. And then you start to build your confidence, and you can apply this to anything, really anything in your life, but specifically in starting a business. Try some new things, and if it flops, at least you've learned and you've grown in some way. And I guess this might be number 4. I'm not really keeping track of my numbers, but I think this is like a bonus tip, which probably should be the first tip, is like put yourself under the patronage of like a powerful saint. And I would be remiss to not mention Saint Joseph as being like the patron of my business. And before I even thought I'm going to start a business, I'm kind of in like a state of perpetual novena to Saint Joseph, just to like protect my family and to guide me. And I've prayed for job opportunities for my husband, for myself. Should I leave my job? Should I stay in my job? Should we move? Like I always have these questions for Saint Joseph, and I feel like he really has us covered. And like Refuge Rosaries is part of, an inspiration of Saint Joseph, because it really has helped take care of our family. And like he's a patron of artisans, he's a patron of parents, he's a patron of families. And the year of Saint Joseph was like pretty early on in the business. I think it was 2021. I might be wrong about that, but I had made a Saint Joseph rosary, and it became really popular. So like my second best selling rosary is a Saint Joseph rosary.
Oh, wow.
And like he's just a beautiful, wonderful saint. And like I could not have done this without like his guidance, basically. And really any good thing in my life is from Saint Joseph.
Oh, amen. Yeah, I was just thinking too, he's Saint Joseph the worker. So when we think of our work, he is a great patron to
Hmm.
go to. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So talk about Etsy. It's like I feel like there's definitely a benefit of being on it, but also
Mhm.
some people like to have their own website. So talk to us just about Etsy. If people are on it, how does it help? If you have any tips and anything you want to say about that.
So I always tell people a lot of times when I'll say like, "Oh yeah, I have an Etsy shop," the response will be like, "Oh, I've always thought about going on Etsy and selling my X." And I'm like, "Just do it. Just open an Etsy shop, sell it, and maybe people will like it. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll learn something because it really is pretty easy to set up. And like there are fees associated with Etsy. They take a percentage out of your sales. There's a listing fee for everything you list, but really it's not bad at all. And it's hugely helpful. It was hugely helpful for me. And you can see like in the analytics of your shop how people find you. And for me, it's about a 50-50 split between social media and Etsy. So half of my sales, half of my customers are people logging into Etsy and typing in Rosary.
Hmm.
So Etsy has really worked for me. And there's some things you need to do. You can't just have like 2 items in your shop. The more you have, the more highly ranked you get to be in the search. The more sales you have, the more reviews you have, like Etsy will prioritize you in the search. So you have to kind of just like with social media and like feeding the algorithm, you have to feed Etsy. But it's really helpful. It really works for me. As a way to get sales, to find customers, to get my rosaries out there. And ideally, I think it's important to have Etsy and a website. I've seen people, even people that have beautiful websites, they also will have Etsy as well, because some people are going to Google and typing in rosary, and some people are going to Etsy and typing in, your product.
Hmm.
So it's very helpful. Um, yeah, I like it a lot. I like it a lot. And I think like you have to play by their rules. You have to, do certain things to be visible on there. But I actually don't pay for ads at all. And I still get sales. And like I know if I want to grow past a certain level, it would probably be helpful to have paid ads. So I think I will do that in the future. But I think it's great. I'm
Do
very pro.
you, as an Etsy shop owner, when someone buys a product, do you get their email address?
So that's a tricky thing with Etsy is there is a way to see their email address, but you can't take their email address and use it for your own email list. It's only to contact them in case of like you need to they type their address wrong or something like that. So, and that's something that's like kind of a bummer, but it goes against the terms to like take their
Right.
emails.
So
So
do
I've seen
you have an email list, and do you use a email newsletter or no?
So I do have an email list, but I have not been. It's one of the things that I'm working on. It's one of my summer goals
Hmm.
is to try to beef up the email list, because I know that emails are really helpful. Email lists are really helpful for generating sales, and so that's something I'm trying to work on in July and August to have more of a beefed up list before like the Christmas season. But yeah,
And
that's a huge thing that like I don't always take my own advice. Like everyone will tell you, all the gurus, like your email list, your email list. And I'm like, oh, I know my email list, but that's just one more thing I have to do. So that's
well,
something that
that's
I've
interesting that you're pretty successful without you utilizing an email list. Um,
yeah.
and do you use Pinterest at all?
So I just started Pinterest like a month ago, and
Okay.
I don't think anyone's following me. I followed
Well,
you.
okay, I'll follow you back.
I'm like, I know Pinterest it's another one of those things like the marketing people will say like Pinterest is huge for driving business, and I'm like, okay, I'm on Pinterest now.
Right. And but it's great to hear, because I think people get overwhelmed with all the things that you're
So
supposed to have.
overwhelming.
And
Right.
you said I do social media and Etsy, and
Mhm.
it sustains me. And now you have ways you could grow, but it's not like you're not busy. Like
Yeah.
you and I were talking before we recorded. You said like, what are the hours every night that you're making rosaries?
Yeah, from like 9 p.m. to midnight. We make rosaries every night. Sometimes I'm like, we're like the elves in the shoemaker. Like go to sleep and we're like making the shoes. But yeah, like when last year when I was pregnant with my daughter, I feel like you can always tell when someone's pregnant because they just stop posting on Instagram. And that was me. Like I was just not posting on Instagram at all. But Etsy I was still getting some sales from Etsy, and it wasn't as much as I could have gotten. But I
Mm.
was like so tired. I was so overwhelmed. So I was able to keep going just from kind of like that passive advertising.
And do you
but
have return
yeah,
customers?
huh? Yeah, I do.
You
Yeah, returning customers are it's so encouraging when you have an Etsy shop, you can see someone, there's like a little star and it'll say returning buyer. And it's so encouraging to see the returning buyer because they're coming back. They got a rosary as a gift. Some people will say, I bought this for my grandma and I liked it so much I went back and got one for myself. And I'm like, that
nice.
is the best. That's the best thing. Like when
Yes.
they see it in their hands, they're like, I need another one.
Yeah. Oh my
Like
gosh.
some ladies whose names I recognize, like every time I make something new, they will buy it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, these are like
And
the Refuge Rosaries completionists. Like they want them
yeah.
all.
So, have you had anyone say, like, give you a testimony about their prayer life connected to your rosary? Like anybody, like any good stories of people like, I bought your rosary and I gave it to someone and they started praying the rosary, or I don't know. Do you have any testimonials like that?
I've had a couple people more recently say that they've become Catholic and they're looking for a rosary and like they've chosen my rosary to be their first rosary. And like that's really special. And I always am
Mhm.
like, I make a little note, like let's send them some extra. Like I always put in some prayer cards, or recently we've been doing like a how to pray the rosary pamphlet. And I'm like, make sure we give, my husband packs my orders. He is like the secret to my success. I'm like, make sure you give good prayer cards. Like she's a new Catholic. And yeah, a lot of people will say like I gave this as a gift to someone in my life. I've had people use them for like their wedding rosaries, like wrapped around their bouquets. I've had
Yeah.
people buy rosaries to be buried with their loved one who's passed away. Like
Oh my goodness.
it's really powerful.
Yes.
And like so often I get kind of caught up in this is the amount we have to make. We got to get them in the mail. But really like I'm creating something with my hands that is going to be like very personal and very loved, like used for prayer, like from
Mhm.
people like actually all throughout the world because we do ship internationally. We've shipped to kind of like some, random countries. Like I shipped to Denmark and the customer from Denmark's like, yeah, it's really hard to find rosaries in Denmark because I think that country is like less than 1% Catholic. They have like the Church of Denmark. So I'm like,
Wow.
wow, like one Catholic in Denmark found me and he like
Wow.
loves my rosaries. So it is kind of sometimes a pain to ship internationally. A lot of times things get lost, but when it's successful, like they're very appreciative
Mm.
and like they wait patiently for their package to
Mhm.
come and they love it and I feel like okay, like it's worth the hassle because they really appreciate it and they really love them.
That's interesting too, because my one friend that like that is like super fan of Refuge Rosaries, she just became Catholic. So
That's
I
amazing.
think she also was praying with your rosary before she became Catholic.
That's so cool.
You have a conversion thing happening there too, which is really neat.
And they're used a lot for like I can tell like when I start getting busier, it's like it's sacrament season. Like a lot of people will get them for like the Easter Vigil, for confirmation gifts, first
Mhm.
communion gifts. So like it is like a big responsibility to be making like religious items because they're so personal and they're so loved and like they're used for prayer. Like
Mhm.
the and something that I love about the business and another way that like God knew me better than I knew myself is like before kids, I was a theology teacher, I was a youth minister, I worked for the diocese in the faith formation office, and like I really was just like on fire for evangelization. And like, I was very forward facing. I was out there, I was in front of a group, I was in front of a crowd. And it's kind of more of a hidden life being home with your kids. And, I'm not running a Bible study, I'm not, speaking in front of the parish, but still like one on one through the packages that we send out, the rosaries we make, the people that I'm talking with and Instagram messages, I'm still finding a way to share my faith and to minister to people in a sense. And like I love that I can still do that while primarily being home with the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, because really, I mean, the foundation is prayer. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing more. And Saint Therese, I have her back here too. And I was thinking about her recently, how she was a Carmelite, a cloistered nun, but she's a patron of missions.
Yeah.
And recently I was talking to a lot of digital missionaries from the United States, and the Vatican is, I think they're going to make a jubilee year of digital missionaries because they said, and Catholic influencers, because there was a synod last year and they said that the internet is the new missionary frontier.
Yeah.
And I look at so many of us that love Saint Therese, the little
Mhm.
flower, and I'm like, oh, well, this was all part of the plan. Like, she is the patron of missionaries, and we're missionaries. If we're online, we're missionaries now. That's the new missionary frontier is the internet. So
And
pretty cool.
yeah, it's awesome.
Well, thank you so much. Tell everybody where they can exactly get rosaries from you and follow you on Instagram and is Facebook as well, right?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Refuge Rosaries. And then on Etsy, it's refugerosaries.etsy.com.
Awesome. And then if you want to join us, if you're a business owner or a Catholic influencer, we have a wonderful community. We develop friendships like this and learn from one another. So go to CatholicInfluencers.com and subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you, Amy.
God bless you. Everybody go pray the rosary. Bye. All right.